2 in the morning, the silence over the Negev Desert wasn't an absence of sound. It was a pressurized void. For the soldiers stationed at remote southern outposts, the night began like any other, but the atmosphere in the darkened command centers vibrated with invisible tension. High above, the stars were clear, yet radar screens began to flicker with something unnatural. It started as a single green dot on the edge of the long-range scanners. Then, that dot split. It became 5, then 10, then 50. Within minutes, screens were a chaotic swarm of electronic signatures, crawling across the digital map like a plague of mechanical locusts. These targets didn't move with the blistering speed of ballistic missiles or the grace of stealth fighters. They were lumbering. They were slow. They were steady. As they crossed the border, a low, unsettling hum rose from the horizon, a sound less like a weapon of war and more like a fleet of aging lawnmowers or a swarm of angry, oversized wasps. This was the opening note of a new chapter in military history. The world's most advanced air defense network, a multi-billion-dollar shield of high-tech interceptors and satellite-linked sensors, was being tested not by a superpower, but by a mass-produced army of flying mopeds. This was the moment the Kamikaze robots arrived. They didn't come to win a dogfight. They came to break the bank and redefine the cost of survival in the 21st century. To understand the terror of that night, we must look past the explosions and into the cold logic of the machines. For decades, Western aerial warfare focused on the ultimate predator. Nations spent trillions developing the F-35 Lightning, a masterpiece of stealth designed to be invisible. But while the West perfected the diamond, Iran mastered the rock. They realized that in the mathematics of modern attrition, 1,000 cheap weapons are more dangerous than one perfect one. This realization birthed the Shahed 136, a loitering munition that is now a legend of the shadows. It is an exercise in brutal simplicity. The airframe, a delta-wing design made of carbon fiber and honeycomb materials, is notoriously difficult for traditional radar to track. Inside, there is no pilot, no complex life support, and no expensive jet engine. Instead, it is powered by a 4-cylinder piston engine, the MD-550, a scaled-up version of what you find in a high-end RC plane. It uses consumer GPS for navigation and wooden propellers that cost almost nothing. It is a weapon built from parts you could order online, yet it carries an explosive payload capable of leveling a building. This is the Shahed paradox. It is a weapon so primitive it bypasses the sophisticated filters of modern defense systems, which are tuned to look for fast-moving, high-heat signatures. By flying low, slow, and loud, the Shahed 136 turned its weaknesses into its greatest strengths, creating a nightmare for any nation relying on expensive interceptors. As the operation unfolded, the strategic brilliance of the attack revealed itself. This was not a chaotic launch. It was a synchronized symphony of destruction. Drones launched from multiple locations across western Iran, their flight paths calculated to converge on targets at the exact same moment. Because they fly at only 180 kilometers per hour, they were in the air for hours, crossing the deserts of Iraq and the mountains of Jordan. The Israeli Defense Forces, along with international allies, watched them the entire time. The tension was agonizing. Imagine knowing for 4 hours that a swarm of hundreds of suicide robots is heading directly toward your home. This is a form of psychological warfare no supersonic missile can replicate. It is the slow, deliberate approach of an executioner. As the drones entered Israeli airspace, the layered defense sprang into action. This is the most complex defensive architecture on the planet. At the top tier, the Arrow 3 system intercepts threats in the vacuum of space. Below that, David's Sling handles medium-range threats. And at the foundation stands the Iron Dome, the legendary interceptor of short-range rockets. On this night, the sky became a canvas of fire. Thousands of rounds of cannon fire and hundreds of interceptor missiles streaked into the dark, meeting the drones in mid-air. The explosions were constant, a strobe light effect illuminating the landscape for miles. From the outside, it looked like a total victory. The shield held. The robots were being swatted out of the sky by the dozens. Beneath the surface of this successful interception, a much more dangerous game played out. The drones were never the killing blow. They were the bait. For every $20,000 Shahed drone launched, Israel and its allies fired interceptors costing anywhere from $50,000 to $3 million each. The math was devastating. As hours ticked by, defensive batteries were systematically drained. Every time a drone was shot down, a tube on a launcher became empty. Every time a radar focused on a slow-moving target, it was momentarily distracted from the wider picture. The defenders won the tactical battle, but lost the economic war of attrition. Soldiers in the bunkers felt the momentum shifting. They were burning through months of production in a single night. At the moment of maximum saturation, when air defense systems were most preoccupied with the buzzing swarm of mopeds, the real threat emerged. The drones had cleared a path through the electronic and physical forest of the sky. With interceptor stocks depleted and operators fatigued, a second wave appeared. These weren't slow. These weren't loud. These were ballistic missiles, traveling at hypersonic speeds, trailing behind the drones like a hammer follows a chisel. The screen glitched under the volume of data. The high-pitched ringing of alarms reached a crescendo. The system override was complete. The invincible shield was forced into a corner, and for a terrifying window of time, the sky was wide open. This is where the story takes its most chilling turn. We often think of military victory in terms of territory gained or enemies killed. But in drone warfare, the metrics are different. As ballistic missiles streaked toward the Nevatim Air Base, the home of Israel's F-35 fleet, the world held its breath. While the majority of incoming fire was intercepted, a handful of warheads punched through. They hit the runways. They hit the hangars. They hit the heart of the infrastructure that was supposed to protect the nation. But even the missiles that missed or were shot down achieved something profound. By forcing the defense system to engage, Iran pinged the most secretive radar network in the world. They now knew exactly where every battery was located. They knew the reaction times of every crew. They knew the blind spots in the radar coverage created by local topography. The Kamikaze robots acted as a massive, sacrificial sensor array. They mapped the holes in the world's most advanced defense network with their own destruction. This wasn't just an attack. It was a live-fire intelligence-gathering mission. The cost for Iran was estimated at $40 million, the price of a few luxury apartments. The cost for the defense was over $1.1 billion. In a single night, the economic equilibrium of the Middle East was shattered. You can shoot down every drone and still lose the war if the cost of shooting them down ruins your economy. When the sun rose over the smoke-filled horizon of the Negev, the landscape of global conflict had changed. Wreckage of Shahed drones lay scattered across the sand, their small, scorched engines looking more like scrap metal than the heralds of a new age. But the message they left was loud and clear. We have entered the era of the disposable army. We are moving away from a world where a few elite platforms decide the fate of nations and into a world where mass-produced, low-cost robotics paralyze a superpower. The Kamikaze robot has democratized destruction, allowing smaller nations and even non-state actors to project the kind of power once reserved for the wealthiest empires. It turned the sky into a numbers game where the winner is not the one with the best technology, but the one who can afford to lose the most. This night was a rehearsal for a future that is already here. Every military on Earth is now scrambling to find a way to stop the swarm without going bankrupt. They are looking at lasers, microwave weapons, and their own swarms of defensive robots, trying to balance the scales. But the fundamental truth remains. The shield is expensive, and the sword is getting cheaper every day. As we look at the craters in the desert and the empty interceptor tubes, we have to ask if the old ways of war can ever truly recover. The drone isn't just a weapon. It is a shift in the fabric of how humanity fights. The silence of the desert has been replaced by the permanent, ghostly hum of the moped in the sky. A sound reminding us that in the next great conflict, the most dangerous enemy might be the one that costs the least to build. The high ground is no longer a hill. It is a manufacturing line capable of producing 10,000 flying bombs. As the dust settles, the tactical reality is undeniable. The moped apocalypse wasn't a one-time event. It was a proof of concept. It was a warning. In the high-stakes game of global survival, it was the opening move of a much larger, darker endgame. The world watched the fireworks, but the wise watched the ledgers. And the ledgers tell a story of a world no longer safe behind its billion-dollar walls. The robots are here. They are cheap, and they are not going away. This tactical evolution forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about security and deterrence. If a nation can be held hostage by a fleet of drones made from lawnmower engines and plywood, traditional definitions of power are obsolete. The night the sky filled with Iranian robots was the night the myth of total invincibility died. It was replaced by the cold reality of managed risk and economic exhaustion. Every impact at Nevatim, every intercepted drone over Jerusalem, and every dollar spent in the heat of the moment was a data point in a new manual of war. As we analyze the wreckage and the radar logs, one thing becomes clear. The advantage has shifted to the swarm. The question is no longer whether a defense can be breached, but how long it can afford to hold its breath before the weight of numbers pulls it under. This was the night the moped changed the world. This was the night the high-tech shield met the low-tech spear and realized the spear had an infinite supply of tips. The future of warfare is buzzing, it is relentless, and it is remarkably affordable. In this new landscape, the only certainty is that the next swarm is already being built, and it will be larger, smarter, and even cheaper than the last. The age of the Kamikaze robot is not just a chapter in a history book, it is the headline of our current reality. A reality where the hum of a moped is the most terrifying sound a soldier can hear. As global powers race to adapt, the lesson of the Negev remains. In the arithmetic of the end times, quantity has a quality all its own. This paradigm shift means that tactical superiority is now measured in industrial capacity rather than individual unit performance. A pilot can train for years to master a jet, but a drone needs only a set of coordinates and a cheap circuit board to change history. We are witnessing the industrialization of the suicide mission. Each drone is a small mechanical testament to a strategy that values the expendable over the exceptional. The psychological toll on the defenders cannot be overstated. Watching hundreds of targets slowly crawl toward you, knowing that each one you destroy is a financial victory for the attacker, creates a unique kind of combat fatigue. It is the fatigue of the defender who knows that even his successes are draining him. The craters at Nevatim Air Base may be repaired, the runways may be paved over, but the structural vulnerability they revealed will haunt military planners for a generation. The moped apocalypse has shown that even the most advanced shield can be exhausted, and in that moment of exhaustion, the world becomes a very different place. Write your tactical analysis in the comments. We'll see you in the next deep dive. Stay sharp.